Now for something completely different.
Forget everything you've been told by others before. Get ready for the real deal, the full story. Real talk about money, markets, life. Now, it's The Real Investment Show with Lance Roberts. Presented by RIA Advisors.
How about now? Yeah. My mic is muted. Sorry. Take two. Good morning. Welcome to the show. That was our. What do they call it when the person does sign language?
Oh,
No, not that one. But anyway. Hi. Good morning. Welcome to the show this morning. We'll get things going here. It's the Real Investment Show. It's Tuesday, of course. That means John Penn is here. It's Two Dads on Money today. So again, we'll talk about money, markets, what's going on. We're going to talk about a little bit this morning about this end of U.S. exceptionalism that's been running around lately. And again, this is part of this whole narrative conversation that we've had recently. Wrote about it in the weekend newsletter. Be careful of these narratives, right? There's a lot of things that are going to change in the future. And believing these more dire narratives tend to not work out well for investors. But that's what we'll get into that conversation a little bit more this morning. Some economic data out over the last couple of days, very interesting. The trade deficit. Remember, in the first quarter, we were talking about these, this kind of drop in GDP growth, and we had the Atlanta Fed coming out. It was like negative, 2.5% GDP growth first quarter. And we warned you. We said, hey, be careful. That's all tariff front running. That's all these companies going out, buying a bunch of stuff, get it in their inventory before the tariffs hit, and that's causing this trade imbalance, this surge in the trade deficit that's impacting that economic number. I said, as soon as this ends, you're going to have a very sharp reversal in that. You're going to have imports drop off sharply, and that's going to lead to this reversal in economic growth because of just the calculation process. And so we kind of warned you about that. A big part of that in that first quarter was the importing of gold to get ahead of the tariffs. And so that's now over, and this is why you're starting to see GDP numbers for the second quarter coming in at 2.3, 2.4%. So that first quarter anomaly in negative GDP growth, is going to get revised higher anyway, but it was a one-time anomaly due to that front running of imports. So while everybody's running around like, see, it's a recession. The recession's here. We warned you. We said, be real careful with that because it's not really recessionary. It's just a function of these imports. Well, so we got the data out yesterday, day before yesterday and yesterday, that there has been a very sharp reversal in the trade deficit. Imports have absolutely plunged. Basically, nobody's importing anything apparently right now. But no, it's just because they already imported everything they need. So now they've got this inventory build that they've got to now push through. And one thing we talked about is that the problem with that is to get rid of that inventory now. If you bought a bunch of widgets or whatever to sell to get ahead of tariffs, now you're going to have to sell those potentially at a discount because the prices of everything didn't go up because the tariffs really didn't hit. We had the stay on the tariffs, et cetera. So now everybody else is still buying the product at the same price effectively, and you're stuck with all this inventory. So that's showing up in the personal consumption expenditures index. It's going to show up in some of the other manufacturing data and services data as well, price data. So we're not going to see that big inflation surge because now you've got this surge of inventory that's got to get liquidated. This is why we keep talking about be careful with narratives. Apply a little bit of economic logic to your thinking about how the world actually works in the process of transacting goods and services and how these things are impacted by supply and demand. Because at the end of the day, remember, regardless of all the narratives out there, it's always supply and demand. Everything is supply and demand. The entire economy is market driven. I don't mean markets like the stock market. I mean the function of markets. In other words, we're buying, the people that are buying things are buying it from people that are selling things, and everything is driven by that supply demand balance that occurs within the economy. So if you need stronger growth, higher prices, whatever you want, it's a function of that supply and demand. So anyway, but pay attention to the data. It is starting to come in a little bit interesting here, but we are going to see fairly strong economic growth in the second quarter because of that reversal in that deficit. Now, this morning, like I said, we'll talk a little bit about this end of U.S. exceptionalism, but let's talk a little bit about what's driving this idea that, Europe is going to be the place that you want to put capital, et cetera. And that's the place right now at the moment. And that's because the dollar's been under a tremendous amount of pressure. And, again, when the dollar falls, right, everything is, again, let's go back to our basic analysis that everything that we deal with in the world is based on supply and demand. So that's based on currency trade as well. So if the dollar falls in value, that means that if I'm storing reserves or whatever it is in the US, well, now I'm losing the value of my stored reserves. So I'm going to move that money back into my own currency because it's better for me to do that. And that also gives me more buying power because I've got a higher currency than what I'm competing against. So if I'm buying stuff in the dollar, anything that if I'm in Europe and I'm buying stuff in dollar values, I'm getting a better buy with it because my currency is stronger than the US dollar right now. That's just the way the world works. So you're going to see capital flows into, as I pull money out of the US reserve currency, right? So my US reserves, I'm pulling that out of stocks, I'm pulling it out of other assets, moving it back into to my currency. That's going to increase my market value, and that's going to put pressure on the US dollar. So it's exactly what we're seeing. So as the dollar weakens, things that are balanced that way improve in price. So we see this decline in the dollar, and that's why we've seen a relative increase in emerging markets because of that decline in the dollar. We've seen the same thing in international stocks because of the decline in the dollar. But be careful with this idea. So this is the narrative right now, is that the dollar's going down, Europe's going up, so that's the end of U.S. exceptionalism. Be really careful with that commentary, because here's a longer term look at emerging markets. Here's the all-time high back here with emerging markets. It's just now breaking out to an all-time high. Here is emerging markets. So in other words, that's 5 years of barely making any money. Same thing with emerging markets. Here's your all-time high in 2022 or 2020. Here's where you are now, still underwater. So this whole idea that the end of U.S. exceptionalism is occurring when you're starting to look at, if you just own the S&P index, you have made dramatically more money. Your money has been treated much better in the U.S. than other parts of the world. And remember that markets are ultimately driven by economic growth. And if you take a look at where economic growth is going to occur in the future, it's not in Europe. It's not in emerging markets. Yes, they will benefit from a stronger U.S. economy, which will come, but that's not the place that necessarily you're going to have this exceptional growth rates, right? The exceptionalism moving to Europe. Europe is not in a position, economic growth-wise, debt-wise, et cetera, to create, demographic-wise, to create that economic excellence that is going to just remove everything from the U.S., this end of U.S. exceptionalism. So again, what's going to be driving the future of the U.S. economy is all the technological development that we're going into, artificial intelligence, infrastructure, power, utilities, all these type of things that we're talking about now is going to create faster rates of economic growth in the future. And that's going to start to bring back dollars into the U.S. So this is a long-term chart of the dollar. So here's the decline in the dollar that we're talking about right now, the end of U.S. exceptionalism. Apparently the dollar is absolutely crashing, but just remember that we had the same type of decline going, I have to set back here a little bit more. We had the same type of decline previously, and it was like, that was the bottom, and then we had this very sharp rally in the dollar. Long term, over the last 10 years, the dollar is actually higher than it was 10 years ago. So again, be careful. The whole point is be careful with narratives, and particularly when you're investing. Yes, right now, the international markets are performing a bit better than the U.S. That's okay. That happens from time to time. But be careful with this narrative that that's where you want to have all of your capital. The economic growth, the valuations that support that economic growth simply aren't going to be that beneficial long term for international and emerging market stocks relative to the U.S., which is where your capital will be made. Anyway, that's what you need to know before the bell this morning. We'll come back, pick up with John Penn, talk some more about the end of U.S. exceptionalism. Is that really a thing? And of course, we'll get into other topics with Two Dads on Money this morning. Don't go away.
Get daily investment news you can use, delivered at the speed of the internet at realinvestmentadvice.com.
Declare your financial independence from the mainstream financial media and join us for the next RIA Candid Coffee with Danny Ratliff and Lance Roberts, Saturday, June 28th. Know the enemies of your wealth and fight them on your terms. We'll arm you with the information you need. Register today for the Financial Independence Edition of Candid Coffee, Saturday, June 28th with Ratliff and Roberts at realinvestmentadvice.com. realinvestmentadvice.com.
RIA Advisors Research is the envy of the industry. Our economic insights are featured on advisorperspectives.com, Fox Business, and MarketWatch. RIA provides advisors with marketing and back office support, objective research, and holistic, cutting-edge financial planning tools to meet your clients' needs. Want to join a winning team and be part of a fiduciary culture where you can do your best work? Then why haven't you contacted us yet? Go to our confidential advisor hub at realinvestmentadvice.com. RIA Advisors. Big enough where it matters, agile enough when it counts.
The Real Investment Show.
Attention Chevron employees and anyone else receiving or considering a company severance package. We know the process can be intimidating. What should you know to maximize your payout? Lump sum or pension annuity, retirement plan rollover or not? What about tax timing your severance? The fiduciary advisors at RIA Advisors can help you make the best decisions for your situation. Call us today at 855-742-7526. That's 855-742-PLAN. Or online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
And now, another page from the Real Investment Advisors Investing Manifesto. A passive investment portfolio requires active risk management. It's not a choice, it's necessity. Diversification doesn't protect against risk of loss. Let us actively help you reach your financial goals with RIA Advisors. Neither bull nor bear. RIA Advisors, 281-501-1791 or online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
You're listening to The Real Investment Show.
So welcome back to the show this morning. You know, we should have just left the mute button on, like for the entire first segment, and then when people started commenting in the chat that they couldn't hear the audio, say it's fine on our side.
What are you talking about? Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's just you.
Is this thing on?
So I told y'all last week my wife went to Vegas to a Bitcoin conference, and all I got was a hat. She didn't bring me back a Bitcoin hat. But it was interesting while she was there, you know, she's in sales. And, you know, we talk about the future of AI and what's, you know, kind of what's coming with AI, and that there's going to be a lot of jobs potentially at risk of our artificial intelligence. And while she was at the Bitcoin conference, a lot of, you know, when you go to these conventions, right, they have all the booths set up, right? And you just go from one booth to the next booth, and there's people there, you know, hawking their wares, whatever it is.
You get a free hat.
You get a free hat.
Yeah.
T-shirt, whatever. So at this Bitcoin conference, though, there were quite a few booths that had no people in them. And what they had was these 5'6", 5'7" female robots that would stand there. And so my wife, when she first saw one, she walked in, and the robot was fixing her hair and, you know, pulling her hair back and looking around, and you walk up to it and it starts talking to you and selling the product. And you ask it questions about whatever the product was that was, you know, that particular booth was selling, and it would tell you all about the product. And at the same time, it's doing normal female gestures, you know, fixing her hair and, you know, whatever. But she goes, it was creepy and scary at the same time, because she realizes now her lifespan is becoming very short in terms of being a salesperson.
That's pretty amazing. So did the robot move, or was
Yeah,
it? I mean, it moved, but like, was it stationary going through all of these motions?
It was. It wasn't walking around.
It wasn't walking
stationary.
around.
Yeah, it was stationary. I'm presuming it was plugged in somewhere.
Yeah.
But it was fully moving, acting like a normal person. And you could ask it any question you want, and it would respond because it was connected to AI.
Interesting.
So It would talk all about the product, but you could ask it anything you want. So she started asking all kinds of questions, and it would answer, and which is kind of spooky.
So I guess but you still need somebody to set up the booth and set up the robot, and
Yeah,
tear it all down.
But robots can do that.
Well, I guess you get a robot to set up your robot.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's coming. But no, she was just a little fascinated that it was already
absolutely.
here, right? I mean,
Sure.
just, you've heard about these things, but that it was actually kind of here.
It was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just hit you in the face as soon as you walk in.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, it was kind of, but like I said, I did get a hat out of it. I didn't get a robot. I thought I was kind of disappointed.
So can eventually you just send your robot to the convention to see the robots?
I guess so.
Are we all going to be replaced by robots?
I guess the
in
real
here?
question is, do you even need a convention at some point when you can just,
You could just network them.
yeah.
Yeah.
True.
So we'll see. Anyway,
Interesting.
so talking about the story of the death of U.S. exceptionalism has been kind of one of the mainstream headlines as of late. And if you'll remember, 3 years ago now, what is this? This is 2025. So 2022. So 3 years ago, the dollar was declining. We had this big decline in the dollar, and it was all about de-dollarization. Remember those whole conversations running around the markets, and it was like de-dollarization, it's the end of the U.S. dollar, the end of the. And Mike and I were writing articles about it's just the decline of the dollar. Things go up, things go down, and it happens. And of course, it wasn't the end of the dollar. And then we had this very strong rally in the dollar post that analysis, and we had 20% return years in the market because that rally in the dollar, absorbed a lot of these foreign inflows of capital into U.S. markets. Well, now the dollar got extremely overbought, so you're having a bit of a correction in the dollar. Now it's the demise of U.S. exceptionalism. Be careful with that story, because the one thing that you can count on about the U.S. is that it regularly innovates. And when you go back through history, whether it was coming out of the agricultural era back in the 1800s, we were building railroads to pull people across the country, opening up new areas of the country, increasing economic activity as these new cities were being built all across the country. And then, of course, we moved from railroads into the automobile. And, of course, we had to start manufacturing the automobiles, creating automation. Then we moved into the 50s and the 60s after World War II, where we had to rebuild the entire world because it was all bombed out from World War II. So we had to industrialize to rebuild a lot of the world, but then also innovating in a way to put people in space. Something totally unheard of back in the 50s and 60s was putting a man on the moon, right? I mean, it wasn't that long ago. Seems like ages ago, but it wasn't that long ago that we were grounded in the United States. I mean, just go back to early 1900, we didn't even have airplanes, right? We had Wilbur and Orville Wright. So over the last 100 years, think about the innovation that has occurred in the U.S. just in the last 100 years. We went from horses and buggies and carriages to automobiles to trains to automobiles to flying to putting people in space to building the internet. Now we're on this cusp of artificial intelligence, which is not ending by any stretch of the imagination. It's just beginning. We're at the very early stages. Remember, in 1998, only 2% of the entire population was connected to the internet. It was just a fad, right?
I mean, that was my senior year in school in college. I mean, that's when email was somewhat born when I was in school.
Wait. You were in school when we had the internet?
Yes. It was just being built.
God, you're young.
Thank you. I appreciate that. What do you think? Well, I mean, my kids think I'm a dinosaur. When I tell them that, when I'm like, look, the internet has not been around that long.
Yeah. When I was in college, there was no internet. We had to take notes.
You had carrier pigeons? What was that?
We had to read books.
Well, we had to take notes. We had to buy textbooks.
We had to go to the library to do research. There was none of this looking it up online stuff.
We had the library. We had all that stuff. And I remember after college semesters having to take my used books back to the bookstore to sell them for whatever they would give me so I could put gas in the car to get home.
Long live the Dewey Decimal System.
There it is.
Yeah.
Right? But you think about it. I mean, when I was in school where I could send an electronic message, an electronic communication to my buddy across campus without having to pick up the phone to call them. It was like, this is crazy. And then the internet was born. I mean, it really, honestly, it hasn't been around that long. And now, to your point, look at where it is now.
Right. 67% of the world's population is now connected to the internet. Just in this period of time. And of course, in that time frame, we went from having to pick up a rotary dial phone to call somebody and having an answering machine to having mobile phones with the entire information of the entire world in the palm of your hand. So when you start, my point about this is that when you start talking about the end of U.S. exceptionalism and it's over, be very careful, because that is not the history of the United States at all. And what's coming in terms of, the build out of infrastructure. I was on Charles Payne yesterday on Fox Business talking about this as well. For every $1 billion, and this is the important thing that people forget when it talks about the deficit. I'm so concerned about the debt to GDP ratio, right? It's going to be the demise of the U.S. Be very careful, because all of those CBO projections do not include any potential for future tax law changes, future economic growth, future revenue growth. Revenue from tariffs are not included, which is already $380 billion. None of that's included in the CBO projections. For every $1 billion that is spent on building out AI, it creates $3 billion worth of economic growth. It's called the multiplier effect. When you do, so the services have basically an even multiplier effect. For every dollar I put into a service, I get about $1 worth out. Actually, a little bit less after taxes. So I don't get a lot of economic benefit from services. I get a huge amount of economic benefit from manufacturing of some sort. So building out infrastructure. Why? Because I'm going to invest $1 into building a plant. Right? It's got to have a building, it's got to have roads, it's got to have utilities, it's got to have all these type of things to build that plant. So I invest $1. Well, the dollar goes to the guy that's building the plant, right? So then he's got to turn around and spend money to go buy the sheetrock, the steel, the frames, the concrete, all that. Well, all those companies that get his money then turn around and spend their money to go get the product sources, everything else they need to build that. So you get that dollar gets multiplied in the economy, because infrastructure is very manufacturing intensive. And there's a lot of things that are involved in that. Employment, products, commodities, etc., all have to go into building that plant. So for every $1 billion that you put into that, you get a $3 billion. So for every billion you put into infrastructure, you get $3 billion out of it. The Trump administration right now has $1.8 trillion worth of commitments. Do the math. Multiply that by 3. That's where your economic growth is coming from. It's also, this is just the beginning of it. The companies like SpaceX that are building a massive AI data center in Redmond, Washington, other places around the country where they're building massive build-outs of data centers. It's not just the data center. It's not just the computers. It's not just the chips. It's the building, the infrastructure, the utilities, the power, all that goes into that is a big multiplier effect for the economy. So be careful with that end of U.S. exceptionalism. It's probably not going to be the case. Be right back after the break.
The Real Investment Advice blog. It's required reading for the informed investor. Catch it today at realinvestmentadvice.com.
Declare your financial independence from the mainstream financial media and join us for the next RIA Candid Coffee with Danny Ratliff and Lance Roberts, Saturday, June 28th. Know the enemies of your wealth and fight them on your terms. We'll arm you with the information you need. Register today for the Financial Independence Edition of Candid Coffee, Saturday, June 28th with Ratliff and Roberts at realinvestmentadvice.com. realinvestmentadvice.com.
If you're working and looking to retire soon, a Medicare special enrollment period is in your future. Understanding Medicare choices, enrollment deadlines, and costs are essential to your overall standard of living in retirement. The wrong choices can cost you thousands in penalties. Make sense of Medicare's alphabet soup with RIA Advisors online resources and one-on-one partners to help secure the healthcare insurance choice that is right for your lifestyle and budget and avoid gaps in coverage. Click on the insurance tab at realinvestmentadvice.com today. realinvestmentadvice.com.
The Real Investment Show.
Are you a financial advisor sneaking peeks at our stuff? Instead of trying to do it all yourself, why not just join the team at RIA Advisors? Our full-service organization can provide you with the support, unparalleled research, and tools for managing your clients' money and honoring the fiduciary pledge of putting clients' best interest first. Don't take our word for it. Talk to the advisors that work with us. Want to come win with us? Go to our confidential advisor hub at realinvestmentadvice.com. RIA Advisors, big enough where it matters, agile enough when it counts.
Can't catch the whole show now? Listen to our podcast later at realinvestmentadvice.com.
Danny's always saying, I can't retire. You can't. Visual Capitalist put out a graph this morning. The title of the graph is, How Much Longer Do You Have to Live? A very sobering graph for 6 o'clock in the morning.
The Real Investment Show podcast.
You look at this graph and then you find your age. It says, I'm going to die roughly about 78. So I've got about 18 years left on my ticker. So I'm retiring soon.
At realinvestmentadvice.com.
The sand in my hourglass is running out.
And now, another page from the Real Investment Advisors Investing Manifesto. Bulls win in bull markets. Bears win in bear markets. Eagles soar above and take advantage of opportunity. Let us help you soar as you reach your financial goals with RIA Advisors. Neither bull nor bear. RIA Advisors, 281-501-1791 or online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
The Real Investment Show.
Attention Chevron employees and anyone else receiving or considering a company severance package. We know the process can be intimidating. What should you know to maximize your payout? Lump sum or pension annuity, retirement plan rollover or not? What about tax timing your severance? The fiduciary advisors at RIA Advisors can help you make the best decisions for your situation. Call us today at 855-742-7526. That's 855-742-PLAN or online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
The Real Investment Show YouTube channel has all our videos ready for your easy access. Now with the new and improved Before the Bell report. Subscribe and bookmark our YouTube channel at realinvestmentadvice.com.
You're listening to The Real Investment Show.
So quick story real quick. I got home yesterday from work. So I told you all about my wife's recipe book yesterday that she had from her grandmother that was in a binder that belonged to her grandmother's father, to be her great-great-grandfather, from 1885. And so I told you about this whole cookbook. And so we had that conversation yesterday. And so when I got home last night from yesterday from work, my wife says, we have to go to Costco. And I'm like, okay, why do we have to go to Costco? And she goes, because I need pickles. And I go, okay, why do we need pickles? She goes, I'm making pickles. And I'm like, what? Okay, I'll go to Costco with you. So I get
support the share price.
So I get, yeah. We own, by the way, full disclosure, we own Costco because of my wife. That's why we own Costco. So we get in the car, we go to Costco, and we're going through the store, and you know, apparently my wife can't judge size well, which works out well for me.
Well, I'm out. Good seeing y'all this morning.
Because she was thinking she needed, according to this recipe, she needed big jars of pickles. And they were the recipe calls for a quart, which is a normal size of pickles, right? So we get to Costco. We're going through the store. They don't have any big size pickles like this, and so we finally wind up. And I'm like, oh, what are you looking for? She goes, I need a quart of pickles, and I'm like, okay, a quart's a regular size. Let's go over. I know where they are, so we go over. Then Costco has a famous brand of pickles that they're supposedly ranked number one, et cetera. And so I know where they are. They're in the refrigerated section. So we go over there. I go, here's your pickles that you need. They're just plain pickles. This is what you want. And I said, I'm still not fine. And my daughter's with us, right? So my daughter's going to Baylor. She's my 18-year-old. She's with us, and she's like, Dad, you make pickles with cucumbers. I was like, I know, honey. Just let's just go along with this because she's on a mission. And so we get 2 quarts of pickles. And so we've now got pickles and we're all good. So I've now made an entire trip to Costco for 2 quarts of pickles that I could have bought at Randall's, which is right by my house. And of course, the bill to get out of Costco was about $180 because my daughter started finding stuff she needed for college. And then my wife found other stuff she needed outside of pickles. I'm like, this is why I hate going to Costco. But full disclosure, we own Costco, so price is probably going to go up today. But I'm still totally confused about this pickle recipe because why do I have to buy pickles to make pickles since pickles are made from cucumbers? And I keep asking the stupid question. Obviously, it's stupid. Honey, don't we need to buy cucumbers to make pickles? She goes, no, we need pickles. That's what the recipe calls for. I go, so we're making pickles with pickles. See, this is where I'm stupid because then we get home and I look at the recipe and it's her grandmother's recipe for quick pickles, quick bread and butter pickles to be exact. And what you do is you take pickles, dump all the pickle juice out, and then put everything you need in the jar to make bread and butter pickles, which are the sweet, spicy ones. You put the cinnamon and the little peppers and everything else into the jar. And then you convert pickles into bread and butter pickles. See, this is where I'm stupid. I don't know these things. You convert regular pickles into bread and butter pickles. And I'm like, honey, can't you do that with lead and just make gold out of it? And we'd just be a lot better off.
Those are some expensive pickles.
Yeah, no doubt.
You're going to be eating pickles for a while.
Yeah. No, that's $180. It's $90 a jar. If you want to buy some pickles, I'll sell them to you. I need to recoup my loss.
So our youngest.
So two stories, two mottos to this. The 2 morals to this story is A, never take your daughter to Costco with you, and B, if your wife needs to make pickles, ask her, are you making quick pickles or regular pickles? Because you can get it at Randall's. Anyway.
I've heard pickles are good for you. I mean, there are people out there, they just drink pickle juice on ice. I mean, it's a thing. So if you got some leftover pickle juice, you can got that too.
Okay. Actually, you know what pickle juice is really good for? Marinating chicken.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So in the chat, they've been going on about talking about first PCs.
Yeah.
And if you had a PC with a floppy drive, you were late to the computer revolution. My first computer was a Commodore 64.
I was about to say the same thing. Mine was a Commodore 64.
Actually, technically, it was an Atari, but that was Pong on television. But yeah, Commodore was the first one, and then you had to buy the external hard drive, floppy drive when it came out. And then my first actual quote computer was a Tandy 1000 with dual 5 1/4-inch floppy drives, and a whopping 512K of memory.
So I had I forget the code of it, but I had a compact computer. It was compact, COMPAQ, and I felt so fortunate in college in my dorm room to have my own computer,
right,
with my own printer. It was a dot matrix, so it's like, I mean, it woke up the whole dorm whenever I printed something on there. But I felt so blessed to have my own computer at my own printer because I didn't have to go down to the local computer center.
Right. So you were a spoiled rich kid.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. But I quickly became very popular in the dorm because then everybody else knew I had a printer in there. They're like, "Hey, John, what you doing this afternoon?" It's like, just come use the printer. Come on, it's all right. We can hang out and we'll just print stuff together.
Exactly. John was just, hey. I have a computer.
Hey, whatever works. Hey, look. Hey, whatever works.
Instead of being in the bar going, hey, what's your major? He's like, hey, I have a computer.
Yeah.
With a printer.
Why don't you come check out my dot matrix? That's right.
All right, John, we gotta get back to work. Let's talk about the SWAN portfolio.
Yeah, so actually, there was a prospective client who I spoke with not too long ago, and they said that they found they wanted my thoughts around a portfolio strategy that ChatGPT had recommended to them, and it was called a SWAN portfolio. And I thought maybe this was the type of portfolio that you could put together that would help you weather a black swan event.
Right.
Or like a
so
sudden,
we now have
sudden
AI,
market
so
change.
we now have
right?
AI recommending portfolios. Got
That's
it.
right.
Okay.
So
What could possibly go wrong?
Exactly. So AI recommended the portfolio, right? And then they called me to say, "Hey, John, what do you think about this?" And I was like, "Well, this is pretty interesting." So I went to go look that up. So SWAN, I thought this was something to help, mitigate risk from a sudden black swan event.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, ChatGPT corrected me. SWAN stands for sleep well at night. It's a sleep well at night portfolio, right? So
Yep.
some of the bullet points here. So the core principles of a SWAN portfolio, Lance. What do you think? So capital preservation.
Sure.
Right? Try to limit your losses during downturns,
Income.
right? Low volatility.
Makes
Just
sense.
try to minimize, swings of your portfolio in more volatile markets. Diversification, right? Spread risk across asset classes and geographies. Income focus, generate steady cash flow like dividends, interest, and then long-term growth. So the last point was this portfolio is designed to provide long-term growth, but it's with modest but sustainable appreciation, right? And so of course, this was really brought to me, 7-8 weeks ago when equities, when markets were a lot more volatile in April, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think they were looking for a much more conservative, less volatile, portfolio. But my question was, well, if markets become healthy again, or we get back into a bullish trend, are you going to be satisfied with your SWAN, or are you going to let your SWAN swim away and you're going to go do something else?
This is always the problem
Right.
with these, with all these types of portfolios. And again, the SWAN's not new, right? That's been around for a while. But there's the couch potato portfolio.
Yeah.
There's all these other versions of that, which are these simplistic portfolios. If you just do this diversification, right, and you put it all in and just leave it alone, rebalance it annually, whatever, it'll all work out fine, and it will, more or less. But the problem is that, as we've always talked about before, is that we get wrapped up into the emotional side of it.
Yes.
So let's just talk about, as an example, over the last 15 years, right, since 2009, right? So what's worked since 2009? So I have a portfolio that's, for example, a portfolio that's 30% S&P 500, 10% international, 5% real estate, 5% gold, et cetera. Perfect. 40% bonds. That portfolio drastically underperformed a 60-40 portfolio that was just stocks and bonds, S&P 500 and bonds. And it drastically, really drastically underperformed a portfolio that was 60% NASDAQ, 40% bonds. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about a small amount of underperformance. I'm talking about a massive amount of underperformance. And, even today, there's still a big performance gap between some of these asset classes. And so the problem is that is always the case psychologically, is that we go talk to our neighbor, right, who's doing really well in the market. And it's like, well, my portfolio, sure, I'm sleeping well at night because it's not going up and down a lot. Well, I'm actually not sleeping well at night because everybody else is making more money than me. And now I'm upset with my portfolio because I should be invested all in the NASDAQ and, not all this other stuff. And so that psychological weight starts to come on. And then we start messing with it. And, getting rid of this and buying more of that and speculating on this and adding options and doing all this other stuff to try to create more return. But that's where that greed factor always messes these things up. These portfolios will work. The SWAN portfolio will work. The couch potato portfolio will work given enough time, right? But unfortunately, our own psychology as many great investors have said, and particularly Ben Graham, the most egregious problem for investors is themselves. Be right back after the break.
Get daily investment news you can use, delivered at the speed of the internet at realinvestmentadvice.com.
Declare your financial independence from the mainstream financial media and join us for the next RIA Candid Coffee with Danny Ratliff and Lance Roberts, Saturday, June 28th. Know the enemies of your wealth and fight them on your terms. We'll arm you with the information you need. Register today for the Financial Independence Edition of Candid Coffee, Saturday, June 28th with Ratliff and Roberts at realinvestmentadvice.com. realinvestmentadvice.com.
Attention Chevron employees and anyone else receiving or considering a company severance package. We know the process can be intimidating. What should you know to maximize your payout? Lump sum or pension annuity, retirement plan rollover or not? What about tax timing your severance? The fiduciary advisors at RIA Advisors can help you make the best decisions for your situation. Call us today at 855-742-7526. That's 855-742-PLAN. Or online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
The Real Investment Show.
RIA Advisors Research is the envy of the industry. Our economic insights are featured on advisorperspectives.com, Fox Business, and MarketWatch. RIA provides advisors with marketing and back office support, objective research, and holistic, cutting-edge financial planning tools to meet your clients' needs. Want to join a winning team and be part of a fiduciary culture where you can do your best work? Then why haven't you contacted us yet? Go to our confidential advisor hub at realinvestmentadvice.com. RIA Advisors. Big enough where it matters, agile enough when it counts.
And now, another page from the Real Investment Advisors Investing Manifesto. Manage risk and volatility rather than trying to manage gains. You don't have to be right all the time. Long-term investing success is a 70% gain. Let us help you reach your financial goals with RIA Advisors. Neither bull nor bear. RIA Advisors, 281-501-1791 or online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
You're listening to The Real Investment Show.
And welcome back to the show. So just bring this. You have to bring this chart up for me. I talked about this a few days ago, but I forgot to bring y'all the chart. I just had to show y'all this chart because right now there are millions of Gen X parents just doing this, because just face palming themselves. Americans are seeking more help with adulting. You'll have to zoom out a little bit. There's more. There's 9 actually altogether. More young, and these are young Americans, by the way, apparently, because they are seeking help on the internet. This is Google search volumes for how to do laundry, how to use a mop, how to use a washing machine, how to use a bank account, file taxes, how to use a credit card, how to put up a picture.
Come on, this can't be real.
How to use a hammer, and of course, how to change oil. Now, the oil I get, right? Because, when I was growing up, when I had my first car, me and my buddies were out in the driveway ripping the engine apart, trying to figure out how to make it go faster.
Busting your knuckles, all that good stuff.
Yeah. And so you had to learn how to change, we had to change oils, do all that ourselves, right? And nowadays you just go to 5-minute quick lube, right? And just have your oil changed and pray they tighten the filter on it.
You don't even get out of the car anymore.
And hope that they're actually changing the oil and not just dinking around with a wrench underneath the car making noise. And it's like, yeah, you're good to go. There's been those stories. But I will just tell you, as I'm looking at you in our YouTube channel, you have failed as parents. I have failed as parents if our kids are actually doing this. And I will tell you just from my own personal experience, I have failed because, my son did not know that he had to register his car and has been driving an unregistered car for 3 years and got pulled over for a ticket. I forgot to tell him he has to do the registration every year. My bad. So he's got to figure it out now. But I forgot as a parent. It's my bad, right? But I did teach him how to change an oil, how to change a tire, I buy all my kids a roadside repair kit, make sure that, they've got that ability. If they break down, they can take care of that stuff. How to use a microwave, how to use a washing machine. When my kids were 8, when my kids turned 8, one of our requirements in the house is they had to do their own laundry. They had to wash it, dry it, fold it, put it away, right? And so they know how to do that stuff. They know how to cook. They have basic skills. They know how to use a mop. So I did good on that part. I just didn't do good on the registration part.
Yeah.
Where'd you fail, John?
Oh gosh. I try to be a very proactive dad with teaching our daughters how to take care of themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, anything from, car maintenance and, getting their cars inspected to knowing how to put air in their tires, what to look for if their tires are low, how to charge a battery, what to, if they need to change their battery, all of these things, right?
Yep.
But, oh my gosh, but, there's trust me, there's so much. It's hard to believe that they grow up so fast. Our youngest is going to be 23 in July, oldest 25 in October. And one of the best gifts I've got them is it's like a little portable. It's got I think it's like a Stanley Fat Max is what it's called.
Yeah.
Where it's like an all-in-one. You can charge it. It can power your phone if you lose power. You can put air in your tires. You can charge your battery. You can check your alternator. They just keep it in their vehicle, so that way if they ever have a flat tire wherever they at, they can put air in it and go get it changed out real quick.
Yeah.
So, but they got to know how to use it.
That's right.
So
know how to, and it's just interesting. As I was reading through this, I was through this list. Now this was the Google search trends on this, right?
Yeah.
So, and the other side of this is Google search trends, and where they're searching for this is to go find YouTube videos about how to do these things, and. This is where you and I were talking about the other day about doing 2 dads on money.
Yes.
Because that's where this chart came from. I didn't have the chart time. I just wanted to show you the chart that I wasn't lying about this. But these are the biggest videos right now on YouTube, which are basically kids looking for fatherly advice about how to do basic stuff, how to hang a picture, change a light bulb, these type of things, how to use a washing machine, things that they should have been taught as kids, but they weren't.
Yeah.
And now they're out in the real world having to grow up and go,
how do I use this?
How do I do this? I bought a house. Great. Here's all the stuff that goes with it. And that's where, have you heard about the new trend now for home ownership?
No.
So the new trend for home ownership, let me ask you a question. Do you mow your own yard?
I do.
Yeah.
Of course.
You mow your yard, you trim it?
I mow it, trim it. Look, man, you
keep it looking nice.
I keep it looking nice. So I just got a new toy.
Okay.
To help me with my landscaping outside. It's a chainsaw on a pole. It's a pole saw. What could possibly go wrong with a chainsaw on a pole that can go like 8 to 10 feet out?
This is
absolutely.
Awesome.
I take care of it all myself.
Yeah, sweet. So, but the new trend is called wilding. Wilding, yes. And that is just to let your yard grow all natural, right? Okay. The weeds, the flowers, the grass, you just let it be what nature wants it to be. It's just another term for lazy. But, this is why, as much as I hate HOAs, and I think we should all get rid of HOAs, I think they're criminal. But this is one of the reasons why you need an HOA, because of a-holes like this that will just let their yard do whatever. And,
it's au natural.
Exactly. So if you're in the chat right now, do you take care of your own yard? Keep it nice? Or do you are you doing the wilding thing? I'm just curious. Just type wilding. If you're letting your yard grow all natural, just type wilding in the chat right now. So.
Look, I'm very fortunate that the individuals and families that we work with, they are of all ages and stages of financial and investment career. But some of the more, how can I say, mature folks that I work with, maybe they are 70, 75, 80, 85 years young. They tell me all the time when we get together, I'm like, what do? You look so young. You don't look anywhere near 80 years young. And their secret is, I do all my own yard work.
Yep.
Keeps them active. It keeps them active. They're out there pushing a mower, with their weed, whatever it is, they do it. That is the number one secret that they tell me.
Best answer in chat right now.
What is it?
He's growing crops in his front yard.
I'm going to live off the land.
All right. We have completely blown this show out of the water today. I apologize. You did not get a lot of financial information off the show today, but
are the vegetables HOA approved?
Apparently not.
Can you grow pickles? That's
the real question.
the question.
So, but I did solve when I remodeled my house, I did solve my problem about my wife wanting to get goats and miniature cows. I astroturfed the backyard. So
Easy
no possibility for goats and miniature cows.
I seem to remember, is there a putting green back there?
There is about to be.
There's about to be.
Yes.
Okay.
I haven't got that far yet. I'm working on the generator right now before hurricane season hit. By the way, hurricane season officially started yesterday.
Sunday.
Yeah. That was right, the 1st. I keep forgetting what the day is. So yeah, hurricane season started officially the 1st. So I have got to make sure a couple of things. If you live in the Houston area, make sure your flood insurance is up to date. Make sure that your content protection is up to date, and then make sure your generator is ready to go.
Which begs the question, do you know how to change the oil in your generator?
I don't have a generator at this moment. I'm working on getting one. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Which
will connect directly to my natural gas line.
I've done
that's
that
what
once.
I did.
Yeah.
And it's better to pay to have it done.
Oh, no, I'm definitely having this. There are certain things in life. I can do a lot of things myself, but there are certain things in life, and especially when you start messing around with natural gas lines, that you pay for somebody else to do it. Yeah. I would like to keep my house intact.
Someone who's licensed and bonded.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. So I had an electrician. So I have a good friend of mine who's very handy with, I'm pretty, well, not to toot my own horn, I'm pretty handy with stuff just around the house, like general maintenance, repair, et cetera. But when it came time to wire in a transfer switch to hook my generator into, I called an electrician out to take care of that because I'm not about to burn the house down. Well, right? Yeah. Absolutely not. Worth every penny.
I told y'all the story when I was renting the house while we were doing the remodel, that we had this massive electrical fire through the entire house because the guy that owned the house had done all his own wiring. and basically, eventually, the entire back of the house almost burned down because of a massive short that was created by his own handiwork. And then he tried to blame me for it. So, as a renter, you did that. No, I didn't. I have proof. So, yeah, there's some things that you always pay for.
Correct.
Which is why having an electrician in the family now, which I do, is a good thing.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. So, licensed bonded electrician. Now, if I just keep my daughter from running them off, it'll work out great for me.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. I've got a long list of projects for him already. So, anyway. All right, we pretty much blew the whole show. I apologize for that. I assure you that tomorrow Danny Ratliff will be here. It'll be a very boring, all financially related show because he has no personality whatsoever. So we'll get into the
Can't wait to
tomorrow.
tune in.
Exactly. It won't be fun like Buy Two Dads on Money, but
talking about pickles and generators.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Today, futures are a little bit down this morning. Just pretty much markets are just overbought here, as we talked about earlier. You're going to get just this kind of consolidation slopping around. The month of June tends to be pretty weak. So don't be overly aggressive right now. Pick your spots on pullbacks. I was talking about that with Charles Payne yesterday as well, is that there's some really good opportunities to pick up some stocks coming. Just be a little bit patient right now. So let the price come to you. Don't chase the price. And you'll be a lot better. Next week, I promise, John and I will be more focused on the radio show and money. So have a great day. We'll see y'all back here tomorrow.